Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, Becoming Your Own VIP Mind, Body, and Soul. Today's video is about how we have to experience things to understand it. And so with that being said, I'm going to mix my testimony in on this so that this title can be explained. So I'm not going to go into great length, just how my life has been and how God has worked in it. And I'm here today through those blessings. So, childhood, I had parents that loved one another, but, when it comes to lessons in life and how they were raised, there was some chaos and toxicity in our lives. That motto with what happens indoors stays indoors. That's that type of household I had. And a lot of arguing, a lot of chaos, a lot of things that I chose to disassociate from a lot of the time because there was a lot of arguing in the house. We had a 1-bedroom home, really small, a lot of chaos that you can't run from and hide from. So the only thing I could do was choose to go within myself and retreat and try to stay out of that confusion that I was in, that I could not understand, with the violence and the arguing and a lot of things that took place, So childhood shaped me in a way that created a perspective of mistrust in men, in the world. And a lot of it was because of maybe, yes, some of the things I viewed from the home, but also some of the teachings of my parents where you can't go out and trust anything, don't accept anything from anybody, be strong, don't cry, that's weak, and whatever you have to do to show up in the world as strong and independent. But yet I was a very sensitive soul, and how that conflicted in my life and how I view things and how to try to be strong, but really on the inside, I was battling it because, emotions, not knowing how to deal with those things. And when you're in a toxic environment, they're not necessarily teaching you the proper tools to go out in the world and survive in that appropriately, in a healthy way, to communicate in a healthy way, to have loving relationships in a healthy way, to have friendships in a healthy way, to handle your finances in a healthy way. As I grew up, I knew how to handle work, really well. There was a healthy structure. You had a boss that kind of told you what to do. And if you messed up, you messed up, and you had consequences that, you had to deal with, but they were in an organized, healthy structure. When you're at home and you have that discipline and those consequences that came out of nowhere, sometimes you didn't even do anything, it just came at you, stuff like that. So you don't understand those things. So that's kind of what led me into my teenage years, trying to adapt and understand what the world was like, what to expect, how to fit in, how to belong, what to look like, what to wear, how to act, how to talk. Oh, you're talking too white. Well, how do I talk black? These things that you kind of grow up with, and obviously dealing with your hormones and your sexuality and dealing with the peer pressures of life. You had those things you had to learn. I smoking weed at a very young age, drinking. We were doing some stuff, and had my daughter at 17. Her father, he went to jail on her year birthday, and I did something that I too went to jail, but I was able to get out on a diversion program and serve and take accountability for that, and got off of that, cleaned my record, not did anything to get myself in trouble in that extent again. But then at the age of 22, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness called pseudotumor cerebri, also known as intracranial hypertension. Not a lot of people knew about it. I went blind completely blind, and I had to have surgery. Later at 24, I had to have surgery again for the same scenario. And, it altered my life when it came to vision, hearing, thinking, memory, speaking. And, that took quite a ding on my confidence and self-esteem. It did. And so when you have childhood and then you have teenage mother and then straight into chronic illness, to be quite frankly, there wasn't a lot of life lived when it comes to social, when it comes to interacting with the world, because I know with my illness, I worked really hard to climb the ladder again so I can take care of myself and my daughter financially and get to a mental place that I was secure in again. So then let's fast forward. 30s was the first time I was officially dating again. And, those were not 100% solid. I was learning in them, and that was a blessing. And then, I was overweight after I got done with the chronic illness, and I ended up doing gastric bypass, the full RNY gastric bypass. And I was in a situation where I wasn't taking care of myself very well between work. I was in management, and these meetings would pop up spur of the moment, skip lunch, no prob. Toxic relationship at the time. I started smoking and drinking heavily again during that time, not eating necessarily consistently. And then my body shut down. So malnutrition, stuff like that. And I was in a wheelchair that then progressed into a walker, and then it progressed into a walking cane. While I was with the walking cane, hiked up a mountain when we went on a vacation in Colorado. And right there and then I knew how far I've come and how I continue to conquer things. And I'm going to continue to conquer those things. And, again, these things have shown witness to what God has done. And, even with the toxic relationship, there were mistakes made throughout my entire life, choices I could have changed and altered at any point in time. And for a long time, I blamed a lot of people, a lot of things, circumstances, places, and things. And did I blame myself? Yeah, I took accountability to that too, but not in a way that was quite clear. So then a few years ago, I was in a relationship I really loved. It was engaged, everything. And then I lost my job. There was a lot of things happening, and I didn't have the tools to handle the emotional things that were transpiring in my life. I couldn't put voice to it. I couldn't understand what was all being dredged up. It was like every single emotion, childhood trauma, fears, worries, and doubts triggered. Everything was just exploding left and right on me. I was in a battlefield that I didn't know how to fight. I didn't have the tools to fight. I didn't have the equipment to fight. I didn't even have the understanding as to what was going on. And that right there is the truth. And so this was about in 2019, so a little bit ago. And that is what started my journey, because I was praying heavy, just trying to find answers because I wanted to change. And I knew God was the only one to have it because, I was going to therapy at the time, being directed to a lot of books. They mentioned meditation, and that piqued my interest. And, but I was praying too. And so with that being said, when I started praying, I started receiving answers. I started receiving clarity, and God intervened in my life in so many ways, through my childhood, through a lot of things that happened. Again, not going into specifics, just I gave you the meat and potatoes of everything. But God has acted in my life and brought me to where I am today. And even today, there are things that I am still clearing and releasing because the well runs deep when it comes to that trauma and the negativity and all those things that you pushed down for so long that you could not or did not want to face, you know. And to each their own. You know, if you're that person that dealt with things at that time and handled everything suavely and perfectly, then great, kudos. I'm grateful for you to be able to up level and to see what's going on in your life and cleanse it and release it immediately. I didn't know what was going on. Every day I was being whipped in the wind, and I didn't understand what was going on from childhood up. I couldn't understand what was going on with people's emotions, why they felt they had to intimidate, why they had to be mad, why I was mad, why I felt sad, why I felt defenseless. The emotions literally had me reacting. I didn't know what was going on. I truly, truly didn't. And when I sat down and I said, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to cry to my friends about it. I don't want to blame anyone about it anymore. I just know that right now, the one thing that I can see throughout my whole life was me dealing with whether the childhood emotions, whether it's the illnesses, whether it's the relationships, whether it's my finances. The common person in every single one of those scenarios was me, and why I wasn't fulfilling the dreams that I had for myself, why I wasn't happy, successful in those areas of every area of my life. And so with that being said, God acted in that, and he's been present in my life my entire time. But I couldn't help but stop, continue to ask sometimes, why, why couldn't I have had this the way I dreamed of it, the way it was going before it blew up? Whether it's by a word or an action that was committed within that relationship by another person or myself. Why? It does take two. But all I can do is reflect on it as to why I had played that part in that scenario. And what came to me was through meditation was I had to experience it to understand it. And that quote that popped up in my mind back in when I was dark and sad and confused, I would not have understood it. I would not have liked that answer. But now that I've been clearing and you've been seeing my videos about triggers and these things that people mirror back to you in order for you to see the things you're not acknowledging within yourself, this was part of my journey. If a lot of the toxicity and the things that I didn't understand wasn't so bottled up within me, I would not have got sick with the chronic illnesses. But I wasn't listening to my body, my needs, my emotions, my mental, any of these things. I wasn't looking at any of these. I wasn't looking at my finances, spending outside of what I should, and not seeing the trend of bad debt and all these things that were happening in my life. To me, they felt normal, and I wasn't listening. And so if I'm not listening, I'm spending my money left and right the way I wanted it versus handling it responsibly. Well, Credit Karma. I mean, that name comes from somewhere, somehow, for a reason. That was my karma for abusing the money, and the gift of that money, and the gift of the services that I received, and that in exchange for that, I was choosing not to pay for it, or I was abusing the money by utilizing my credit cards and spending past my limit, knowing I would not be able to pay that credit card back quickly. That's my credit karma. That's what's coming back to me. And then how I abused my body with fast food, with not getting an adequate amount of sleep, with smoking, with drinking, with treating myself negatively within my thoughts and my actions. I was abusing myself. I was thinking negatively about myself with, my worth, my value to people, to this life, to myself. And I put a lot of expectations on myself to meet other people's needs, but it wasn't about other people's needs. It was never about anybody else. It was about knowing who I was. And if you don't know, You're looking off of the definition other people define you as. And I was lost because I was looking at someone else's image of me, not with what was in me. Everything that was in me, my morals, my character, my values, I bent to cave and to concede to someone else's wishes, putting someone else above me when really we're all equal, putting circumstances being more important than knowing what I can actually take care of right now. I really want this vacation, so I'm going to put this above, and then I'm going to have to deal with the consequences later. That's not healthy. None of those ways are healthy, and I didn't see that because of the environment my mind was set in for so very long. And the negative patterns of thoughts and everything that will go on. Like I said, if you stop and listen to your mind, just stop. You'll hear all this chatter, all of this chatter. And to learn to slow that down and to pick the pieces up, to hear them and to face the discomfort, that took a long time for me to do. Because again, if I've ignored, I disassociated when I was a kid. I'm not joking when I say that. I disassociated and I buried every single feeling that was not positive, that did not feel good. I fought it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. And that is what I was receiving in relationships, the chaos and the emotions. If someone said something that truly wasn't in the context of hurting me, but somehow it triggered me because of a past scenario, and I projected that I needed to protect myself, or a fight or flight scenario. Well, if I'm not going to fight, I'm going to flee. And that means you're running out on a lot of good opportunities of growth that you can be mature enough to communicate and express and face that. And again, if you don't have the tools to communicate and express that, if you don't have the tools to sit down and create a budget, and if you don't have the willpower, the restraint to say, you know what, this isn't good enough for me, that I can't sacrifice this right now, or to pick up a book and gain that knowledge versus turning on the TV or going out with friends so that I can educate myself on those finances, educate myself on those emotions that I was feeling, educate myself on how to communicate and express those needs that are being risen within me, to understand what those mean. I now know emotions actually are very much so telling you, as a way as your moral compass, that something's not right, something's out of alignment, and how to get back on track. There was a lot missing. And that final thing that snapped within me in 2019 allowed me to stop, to go into hermit mode and ask those questions, those appropriate questions, and pray and allow myself to receive those answers. And yes, that meant meditating. Yes, that meant seeking spirituality. Yes, that means I was awoken to understanding what the solutions to my problems were. And that was to be my own hero and to allow myself to feel the things that I did not want to feel, to face all those fears, those worries, those doubts, to face the things that I've said about myself, and to find out what the roots of those thoughts were, those insecurities that create jealousy, envy, resentment. Why? I had to learn, instead of saying, why me, to ask more empowering questions. And how can I learn to be better? Simple. And allow those answers to come. How can I learn more about this? You can Google it, but you can ask within as well. And allow yourself to be guided within, because within is guiding you no matter what. You didn't even know it before, but it was guiding you. And so your body's going to speak to you in ways that, tells you if it's not feeling good, if it's low on energy, if it needs food, if I'm getting bad vibrations from somebody or something. Your mind, again, it's the devil's playground. It can be messing with you all day. The question is, how can you start clearing your mind and releasing the negativity and the toxic thoughts that are playing with you every single day? Because you're not a bad person. And for a long time, I questioned that. And especially when I decided to start facing those fears, worries, and doubts that I couldn't understand. And, putting blame on things that, may have not worked out in my life, especially relationships, and realizing, again, it takes two people. But the biggest thing was, what was it that I did not heal? What was it that I was not equipped with in order to become another part of someone else's life? Where did I take accountability to make sure that I knew I was prepared to take on not only knowing myself, but knowing another person? And if I didn't even know myself, why did I feel at that time that that person was going to fill those needs? If I didn't even understand my own needs, how am I going to sit there and not ignore my needs and do everything to fulfill their needs? And there was an imbalance. And so I was blessed with that scenario. No matter what happens, I had to experience it to understand it. And that's when I understood that quote. And, it's easier said than done, especially when you had looked back upon things with potential regrets and hurt and sadness and anger. And, still, there be pieces that, say, well, why can't I fix this? Or what could I have done differently? And, all these things that you go through, God had set up a wonderful system in this journey for us to experience things, for us to understand it. Touching a hot stove is the simplest thing. You're going to touch it, and then you experienced it, and now you understand why you shouldn't touch a hot stove. Okay. So to understand positivity and joy, you have to understand sadness and hurt, and all of the other opposites and polarities. There's been so many things that I've been learning and discovering that I think that will truly benefit so many people, as it has benefited me. I had to tell you, though, that, I was in a very dark place, and, it took a little bit to even begin the process of facing my emotions. So the first thing I had to do was get the exterior toxicity out, the drinking, the smoking, the eating, what I was watching, what I was listening to. I had to get the exterior stuff out, because then I can listen to the things within. So that's my testimony at this time. And becoming your own VIP was inspired by my journey, because I think we're all striving to get into that VIP part of the club, and not realizing why you are so very much so important. And to become a very important person, you need to know yourself. And, something powerful that I reflected upon the other day is, I was talking to my sisters, and both of them kept saying, well, I know myself. And I'm like, well, I don't think you really do. I mean, look, I didn't even understand myself really until I got on this journey. But then I realized there's a key thing. Because we're sisters, we all had different perspectives. I'm pretty much the only one that truly disassociated from not just my household, but from life. And really, that was my mirror reflection to say, that was about me needing to know myself. Other people may know themselves. Maybe, and I still say this, and I said this to my sisters, after I became spiritual and was looking, not just reading the Bible, even though a lot of the things I'll talk about is about the Bible, but there's Taoism, there's the Tao, there's Zen. There's so many things I've been reading and educating and looking up. And I've always said that really, truly religion is all based off the same thing. And that's why I claim to be more spiritual than religious. But neither here nor there. I do still feel that once you bring a spirituality and a sense of what God can bless you with your gifts, your talents and abilities, there are aspects of yourself that you still don't know. But out of respect for understanding what my sisters were saying, is they still had that base understanding of knowing who they were. And they were there because they know who they were. There's certain boundaries that would never have been crossed with them, where boundaries may have been crossed with me because I didn't know how to uphold my own boundaries. Do you understand? So for those people that were always looking for, who am I? Who am I? And for those that are seeking to know yourself, then this is where I feel my story definitely will hold more resonance to. But I think we're all on some level looking for something, for some sort of answer, because there is a disconnect and a misalignment within us somewhere, because there is pieces of us that are not whole. Okay. And we're searching for those answers. Seek and ye shall find. The question is to ask those more empowering questions so that you can receive the answers that will empower you. And I'll get into those videos a little bit later. I'm trying to keep my videos at a decent amount of time. But this life, people, places, things, emotions, we're to experience it, to understand it, to overcome it, and still shine our light and not let it drown us out. We're to overcome it, to come out of the darkness, to come out of the negativity. You are to experience it, to understand it. And I hope this helps. Again, more videos to come. If you have any questions, let me know. Please like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys a little bit later. Have a blessed night. Bye.